Recognized Uncle Walker D01. Recognized Emily of Arden D12.
Hello, team. Thanks for joining us for episode 15 of Whelmed, the Young Justice Files Season 2. Welcome to the warehouse. My name is Rich, and I'm here with my co-host, Emily.
Hey, everybody.
If you'd like to get in touch with us, you can find us on Twitter at the YJ Files, on Facebook at Crashing the Mode, on our website, crashingthemode.com, on theyjfiles.tumblr.com, and at our email address, whelmpodcast@gmail.com.
It's great we're finally spending a little quality time together. Karen?
Sorry, I'm a little preoccupied with the second moon in the sky. There's panic across the country and around the world. What NASA calls an encroaching planetary body is already having a gravitational impact on the Earth. Tides have altered, and so-called mini tidal waves have become commonplace. The U.S. Weather Service is advising the populace to stay off the water and move inland from the coastlines.
And with all that housekeeping out of the way, let's hand it off to Emily for...
Hello, Megan!
The title of this week's episode is War. The release date was February 9th, 2013, just 1 week after the previous episode on February 2nd of 2013. The in-episode dates are April 2nd, and then we jump over to May 23rd through 26th. The director was Mel Zwire, and the writer was John Wiseman.
Special guest voice credits this week. Keith David, yes! Goliath returns as Mongul. Of course, the late Miguel Ferrer as Vandal Savage. We have Phil Lamar back as Aquaman, Green Beetle, and the Ambassador. We see Batgirl back, which is great, voiced by Allison Stoner. And Michael T. Weiss is back as Captain Atom.
Just in time for your next mission.
So, in our pre-credits scene, we see Superman and the other members of the Justice League that left a couple episodes back. They're standing on trial for attacking Rimbor. While Superman attempts to state the facts and explain why they're not guilty, the tribunal is uninterested, since the League has apparently refused to pay the customary bribes that would have gotten them off the hook at the beginning of all of this. However, the trial is interrupted by an intergalactic announcement that the Reach has invaded Earth. While this revelation leaves the League very confused, a passing comment about who will eventually rule the galaxy from Vandal Savage to a large green alien that we don't get a really good look at results in said alien storming out of the courtroom.
In the post-credits scene, almost 2 months later, in the Watchtower, Captain Atom informs members of the League and the team that a gigantic planet-sized object is heading straight for Earth. Over in New York City, the Reach are also monitoring the approach of the Death Star. They attempt to convince the encroaching threat to abandon its mission, claiming the Earth as property of the Reach, but their request is denied.
Then at Star Labs, Green Beetle informs Nightwing and several scientists that this approaching threat is a self-powered, self-sustaining ship known as the War World. The massively armored and weaponized ship is telepathically piloted by Mongul, a former planetary dictator, intent on taking back his homeworld by conquering the entire galaxy, who somehow found the lost key that powers the War World. Can't say the word War World, but okay.
It's a tough one. I get it. I have it too.
And apparently, he's come to Earth with enough weapons to completely destroy it.
Lovely. As the War World approaches, it begins to affect Earth's gravity, causing tidal waves and changing tides, and it's predicted to only get worse. Oh, I have to tell you how happy that made me. This whole thing about something that size coming into orbit and affecting the Earth. Ugh, thank you. Thank you. The Reach make a public statement at the UN that they only have the one non-weaponized, diplomatic vessel, and thus cannot protect the Earth from this threat, though they do vow not to abandon the planet. On the Watchtower, Captain Atom attempts to negotiate with Mongul, but Mongul declines any attempt at discussion. Just as Mongul's about to open fire on the Earth, Dr. Fate steps in to shield the planet, followed by Rocket, who protects Dr. Fate, Captain Marvel, Captain Atom, and Green Beetle, all of whom work together to keep Mongul's attention, allowing the team to infiltrate the war world, doing what they do best.
Once inside, the team splits into 3 groups to try and neutralize the war world. Alpha Squad is sent to take out Mongul, Beta Squad is sent to retrieve the Crystal Key, and Gamma Squad is sent to take down the Power Core. If any of the 3 groups succeed, the Earth should be saved. Batgirl and Robin are laying down cover fire outside the war world, and back on Earth, the Reach is monitoring Blue Beetle's progress. Unfortunately, all 3 squads are attacked by defense drones as they attempt to make their way through the ship.
Superboy, Wonder Girl, Arsenal, and Wolf all eventually make their way to Mongul's control room, but are taken down after even just a brief fight. Mongul then decides to unleash the war world's full collection of weaponry on the Earth. Earth's military begins mobilizing alongside the Justice League, but even their combined forces aren't going to be enough to stop this thing. This forces the Reach to step in and mobilize their hidden fleet of spaceships we had seen in a previous episode at the bottom of the Marianas Trench to prevent the total destruction of the Earth.
Guardian and Bumblebee continue to have an argument between the 2 of them while attempting to take down the Power Core, while Blue, Impulse, and Beast Boy try to steal the Crystal Key. Mal eventually gives Karen the idea to reroute the ship's power to overload Mongul's controls, dazing him enough to give Alpha Squad an opportunity to take him down and contain him. The war world is officially neutralized, and Blue snags the Crystal Key as an added precaution against the ship reactivating, and as a prize for the Reach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Blue. The team regroups to return to Earth. Mal and Karen have a heart-to-heart, wrapping up the communication problems the relationship had been facing through most of this season, and everything seems like it's going to be fine, which is always a problem. When Blue Beetle suddenly attacks the team, Arsenal opens the airlock, willing to risk everyone's lives to prevent himself from being captured again. And while it almost sucks Blue out into space, he's able to deactivate it at the last second. Arsenal escapes into the war world, leaving the rest of the team captured and unconscious, while Blue Beetle is able to claim the Crystal Key as a victory for the Reach.
Dun dun dun.
That's my line. All right, man, there's a lot going on in this one. There's just a lot. It's a lot of combat and stuff, but there's a lot of other stuff going on too. So let's do
all over the place.
Do the Aster. Let's do it.
Superboy, are you alright?
I'm fine. Feeling the Aster.
Yeah, let me start by talking a little bit about Mongul, and then we'll dive into the team and some other stuff, like having 3 different groups of people doing stuff. So Mongul's got a long history, and as I mentioned in a previous episode where we're talking about Despero, and then of course we also have Darkseid. So Despero, Darkseid, and Mongul are like DC Universe's, galaxy-spanning despots in various interpretations. Mongul in the pre-Crisis on Infinite Earths era, so before the 80s, Mongul was the master of a giant ship called the War World, just like you see in Young Justice. Now, this was interesting to me because I was just reading some stuff before we started this episode, because in my mind, I remember Mongul as simply the lord and master of a gladiatorial planet. And that was called the War World, similar to the Planet Hulk and the stuff you might be seeing in some of the trailers for the new Marvel, from the new Thor movie. It's kind of like that. I didn't realize there was an actual Death Star-like weapon that he controlled. In the New 52, apparently they brought back the War World again. And one little nod, he mentions the word mercy a lot. He talks about mercy in this episode a few times. Apparently that was actually, according to Brandon, that was actually a little underlying inside nod to one of the best Mongul stories in the comics, and one of the best Justice League Unlimited episodes as well. The Justice League Unlimited episode and the comic I think it's based on are both called For the Man Who Has Everything. And it's where...
That's a good one.
Oh, it's so good. I cry every time. It's Superman's birthday. Batman and Wonder Woman come to the Fortress of Solitude to celebrate his birthday. They find out that they get there and he's got this giant plant attached to him. Superman does. It's called the Black Mercy. It was sent to him by Mongul, who was, had it posing as like a grateful planet somewhere. And the Black Mercy attaches itself to someone and then actually gives them this very realistic holodeck matrix-like reality in their mind of whatever their dreams are. I think we've talked about this a little bit on the show before, but I think it's worth repeating. Like his internal world is one where he had come to Earth. He finds Lois Lane. They end up getting married. He goes back out, discovers that Krypton wasn't destroyed, that it was all a mistake. He comes back, lives on Krypton with Lois Lane. They end up having a son. Oh my gosh. And then, while Bruce is trying to like get this thing off of him, while Wonder Woman is trying to go toe to toe with Mongul. Man, that episode is so good. So much emotion packed in there. And it really harkens back to what our friend Jeff Stormer had talked about in that Superman episode he did with our discussion episode about how good Superman stories aren't about his powers. They're about his morality and about the things that he cares about, whether they're going to survive and be intact after the story is over. Fantastic Mongul story. So,
yeah, it's a really good episode.
So Mongul, I'm assuming, will return as well. And you get a very good version of Mongul, too, in the rest of the Justice League and Superman animated series as well. And the only other, I know you've got a lot of stuff I'm going to want to echo and comment on, but the only other thing I thought was awesome was seeing Mal in Guardian's outfit. Congratulations, Mal. You're an official superhero. Good job, buddy.
He's trying so hard.
I know. I'm very proud of you. Yeah, so what do you have?
So it's really nice now that we're 15 episodes into the season to finally see the Justice League again.
I know, right?
But this time through, I don't know if it had ever registered in my mind really that scene with them takes place 2 months before the rest of the episode. Like, I'm not sure it had ever clicked. And then I saw it this time when I had to write down the timestamps as I do for Hello Megan. And I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Wait, what? Okay, sure. It just caught me off guard. I was like, I didn't realize that this is what we were going for, but okay.
Yeah, it's interesting to me. I like it because one of the things that they do in TV shows a lot is drastically accelerate the legal process. Oh, we arrested this guy today and,
he's in jail by tonight.
Tomorrow he'll be on trial. Here at least they have an excuse to give a nod to like, okay, the league's been on this other planet, who knows what form of red tape, and probably they've argued back and forth about these mores, to be given to the tribunal and things like that for a while before, we cut back.
So, because it's 2 months earlier, and that's when Mongul storms out of the courtroom, I don't know if it's just me, but it feels like the world, I can't say the name of it, but that thing just showing up feels kind of sudden. Like, I feel like you'd have more awareness of it than just cut 2 months later and it's suddenly here. But that's just me. Like, I feel like somebody with all of the science that exists in this universe, somebody would have picked up on this sooner. But
maybe
I don't know.
It depends on how it travels. I mean, it's
true.
If it goes into like, a hyperspace or a warp bubble, drawing on any other technobabble from other shows.
But then it raises the question of why is it 2 months later?
Well, what I'm saying is that doesn't mean that it doesn't take 2 months to get there. It just like
True.
It's not an instantaneous, planet-sized boom tube. But I'm just saying, like, while it's flying, it could literally not be in this dimension, like, to be seen
True.
until it slows down outside of, like, I think they see it at Saturn or something like that. And, quote unquote
True.
slows down because it still must be going outrageously fast because it gets there even once they spot it at Saturn very quickly, But I hear what you're saying. I do like the fact that it wasn't an instantaneous thing. I'm glad that it took some time.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, actually getting back out there. Yeah, we'll talk about that in Crashing the Mode. That's interesting. Okay, go ahead. What else do you got?
We're going to talk about it later, but I love that they come up with 3 separate independent plans that could each succeed on their own.
Yeah.
But I also love that it takes combining those plans to make them actually work.
Yeah.
It's nice to see a group of people go into a situation and go, we have no idea if any of this is going to work. So instead of focusing a team of 20 people on one thing, we're going to each do something else to try and make sure we get something done.
I may have talked about, I can't remember now, we've talked about so many Canary debriefs, but one of the things that is pretty common about things like this is the plan will go wrong. If you're not told the plan will likely go as planned in retrospect. So we have 3 plans. We hear what all the plans are going in, which means that if we then see all of the plans work perfectly, then we have redundant information and no drama. But since we know that what all 3 plans are when they're going in, then you know they're not going to go correctly. And I've seen shows in which they tell you the plan, and then we watch the plan go without a hitch, and it is like, what are you doing? It's very weird. Yeah.
I agree.
But I love that they all had to work together as well. There's a lot of character information, like character growth, informed in all 3 of these kind of plans as well.
Like, I love seeing Connor as the leader of a group again, because I love seeing him get to do stuff.
Yeah, me
but
too.
I also think it's really amusing that he's like the calm, put together leader who's like, this is the plan and this is what we're gonna do, and he's paired up with just the brute force squad,
right?
Who's just like, we're just gonna punch it into submission, and he's like, no, I grew out of this phase. Listen to me for 5 seconds. We have a plan.
No, there will be no listening to Superboy.
Superboy's like, this is what we're going to do. And Arsenal's like, I'm going to throw a grenade at it. Superboy's like, no, stop.
Yeah.
But that's really nice to see. Because I like seeing the original members of the team get to be leaders and all of that. That's nice.
Yeah.
I like seeing that again with him.
It's an advantage of the time jump.
True.
Just throwing that out there.
Yeah. But halfway through this episode, something dawned on me. And it dawns on me through a lot of the upcoming episodes where I just started shouting at my screen, okay, but where's Zatanna?
Oh, yeah,
and
for sure.
Because it's like, here's Dr. Fate. He's protecting the whole world. Isn't it so useful that we have a super powerful magic user? I'm like, yeah, you have 2. Where's the other one?
Yeah, at least 2.
Why isn't she here? Why isn't she helping? And now that I'm thinking about it and saying out loud, I feel like there may be something later in the season that would end up in Crashing the Mode that maybe explains why she's not around. But I feel like it's not enough and she should be here. That's like, this is real important. You can take a 10-minute break from that to help stop the world from ending.
Well, I mean, and you know what? I'm gonna give them credit, and I know you give them credit too. I mean, she could literally have been, like, I love the fact that I really do feel like they give me enough confidence to feel like they could all be on their own adventures doing something else. Like, she could literally be in another dimension doing Zatanna stuff, right? She could be rescuing some supporting cast character from literally hell. And like, you know, we don't know, but there's a story out there and it makes us want to know what that is.
If that's the case, I would have liked a line. I would have liked a single line, and it's just because they've done other things where they've been like, Superman's off world, he can't help with the thing right now. Whatever. They've made excuses for why people aren't around in the past. Like, even just the previous episode that we've talked about, when they send Blue Beetle to go after Red Volcano, they're like, Zeta tubes are down, Flash is busy, you're the only one who can get there. Even just saying Flash is busy is all I need. Saying Zatanna's in another dimension right now is all I need. I would just like the acknowledgement instead of me sitting here going, okay, but Zatanna would be really helpful.
Yeah.
Because while I can totally believe that she's off being busy,
there
is still a part of me that feels like it comes off as, we just didn't put Zatanna in there. And I'm like, but why?
Yeah.
Just give me a line. I just want an acknowledgement.
I can't argue with you. I mean, there's definitely precedence for them doing that for sure. You know, like, oh, where's, Robin, Batman's in with Robin in Gotham City doing the dynamic duo thing, right? They've definitely had that precedence, but there's so many characters now. Like, was anybody else missing? Like, where were other characters? Zatanna may not be able to be in space very easily, to be perfectly honest. You know what I mean? Like,
True. Magic.
I mean, I do. I hear you. I mean, clearly Dr. Fate's out there like that too, but as much as I love Zatanna, Dr. Fate is a more powerful, like, immortal, non-dying being. So she's in space where, I don't know, like, I guess she could be wearing a mask and do her magic that requires verbal components and blah, blah, blah. But I don't know. Like, did I need a line? Would I like to have had a line? Yeah. Did I need a line? I don't know if I needed one. We'll see. Yeah, I don't know. And maybe, you know what? I bet we could also look at the original script at some point and see if maybe they did have a line and it just got cut.
Time for commercials.
Stupid commercials.
But yeah. And that's one of those things where it's one of those things that only occurs to me when I watch the episode over and over again and I start thinking about, hey, wait, why aren't people here?
Right.
And because we didn't have like tie-in comics for this season, we couldn't answer that.
Yet.
Like,
we don't have them yet.
True. Yeah. Like Wally, Artemis, and Robin were absent from like 3 episodes in a row in the first season, and their solution was, here's the tie-in comic that explains exactly what they were doing.
And that's just it. There's so much potential story out there. Like, they could be doing tie-in comics from here to eternity, which is fantastic. But getting back to the split thing, like the combat thing, like there is, like I was saying earlier, there's a lot of character development that goes along with what we're seeing, right? So you see Superboy in reflection to Roy and how he's grown, and Wonder Girl with her kind of impulsiveness, right? But then you also get Karen and Mal.
Yeah.
You know, they've been having a lot of issues.
They've been having so many issues this season.
I feel bad for Mal, but I understand both of their points of view of having problems in this relationship. You know what I mean?
They need to, it's all communication. They just need to talk more. Karen has important stuff to do, and Mal knows that and needs to acknowledge that. But Karen also needs to acknowledge that Mal wants to spend time with her, and they need to figure things out. And I appreciate that they do. Like, they both have legitimate points in this, and they the show allows them to talk through that without, like, demonizing either of their viewpoints. A lot of shows would have been like, Karen's just so busy all the time. Doesn't that make her an awful girlfriend? Period. End of story.
Yeah, exactly. Or vice versa. Why is Mal so clingy? You know, or something, which is neither the case for either one of them. I get Karen. I've been to college a few times now. I get how that works, but I think she does make an assumption that's like, you know, you just need to assume, Mal, that nothing is more important than this, including you. Like, in any single moment, if I'm going to choose between you or what I've got to do for work, I'm going to choose what I'm going to do for work. And she just expects him to understand that. And he, understandably, wants her to spend more time with him, but also isn't really registering, I think, how much he's going to have to be patient or make a decision that he needs to go be with somebody else until she figures it out or, you know, finishes what she's doing. But I agree with you. I really like that this whole thing. I mean, I was kind of laughing at their argument, and I was laughing at it because it was like, oh, yeah. I get it.
We are in the middle of a mission.
Right. I'm laughing because it's true. All of us do this stuff.
And with it being in the middle of a mission, I kind of, thinking back on it, I like that also because it feels like a bit of a throwback to season 1. Because we haven't had this sort of overlap of like interpersonal drama while fighting a villain, I feel like, in a while. This was something that happened in season 1 a lot, where they'd just be arguing over the telepathic link about dumb stuff while they're punching Sportsmaster in the face. And I like that. And I like that we get it in this episode between these two.
Yeah.
And it's just really cute. And I like that they have their conversation and work out their stuff, at least a little bit. Like, have more conversations, talk more. But I like
agree.
That.
As much as you talk about Arsenal needing therapy, you actually said something nice about him. Sort of.
kind of have about him. I liked in this episode when it first premiered, I liked the little moment between Wonder Girl and Arsenal, and I thought that was kind of cute.
It's like a little snapshot of him getting to be
human for 5 seconds.
Yeah, normal. And I love how your next line in the outline right after this of you being really nice to him is Arsenal is the most frustrating panic boy. So you kind of basically just you're like, here, I'm giving him this, and then I'm just gonna go back to saying he needs therapy.
I'm like,
needs therapy.
I will give him the props of he got 5 seconds to be cute with Cassie. And I just want to point out that their ship names were either Reward, because of that line, or Wonder Gun, which just amuses me to have to say.
Wonder Gun.
Oh, yeah.
But does anybody do anything? Like, that seems like I don't see any of that. They'd be a terrible couple. I just don't see...
People, okay, because here's the thing with cartoons. almost all the time, if you throw in a moment like that, it means that we're leading somewhere. So people were like, that could be kind of cute. They're both part of the brute force squad. They're both just going to smash things up. That could be kind of fun.
I guess her optimism maybe could counter him.
Crashing the mode, it doesn't go anywhere. But I kind of also like that it doesn't go anywhere after this moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Crashing the mode, sorry. They don't end up together. But
Yeah.
I kind of just like that it's just a little moment of just like, whatever. They're teenagers.
Yeah.
And it's cute.
And whether you back a particular relationship in the show, you know, or whether like it's canon or not canon or anything, it's always, I think, an interesting writing experiment to think about like, well, how would this work? Right? You know, if this was a relationship that was written well and we put thought into it and there was some depth to it, what would a relationship between, you know, Wonder Girl and Arsenal be like? How would they be compatible? How would they not be compatible? You know what I mean? Like, how would if Wally and Dick, you know, were not just friends, but like got into a relationship together, how would that be a positive and a negative for each of them? And how would their relationships clash, or how would their personalities clash? And those kinds of things that's what you do constantly when you are a writer or a creator. You're taking these lines down, what if lines, even if they're not canon situations. So, yeah.
But also, Arsenal is the most frustrating panic boy.
It's a great quote.
Get this kid some therapy and then keep him far away from missions. Like, he almost kills everyone.
Yeah.
And again, it's one of those things. I understand why he does it. I do not agree with it.
Okay, what else do we got?
And last thing, also talking about Arsenal, despite calling him a frustrating panic boy, I like that they have him use a rebreather in space. I have no idea if that would scientifically work in any way at all, but it's a cool idea.
Well, they have showed in the past that they have, you know, all of them have these rebreathers. The thing is, it's usually shown on someone who you can kind of justify can survive in a vacuum without any kind of protective outfit on. So, but I'm glad that they even have Superman wearing a rebreather, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
but they have Roy pull out one of the like underwater ones that they showed Artemis use a lot in season 1.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because he's actually not, I mean, that makes perfect sense to me. Like, he's not out in the open vacuum of space for very long. They're just, you know, that kind of thing. But
I don't science, so I don't know if it works. I just think it looked cool.
those little rebreathers look really, really cool, but they have not been able to invent one yet. There was some, what we call vaporware, offered up a while ago saying that someone had developed something that would be publicly available, but of course it never showed up. I think that was all a fib, but we'll see. We'll see. All right, let's get into a bit of debrief.
Stick around. Class is in session.
So this week we're talking about splitting the party. So in gaming, there is an adage, don't split the party. And the origin of that comes from old school Dungeons & Dragons, of course, the first role-playing game ever back in the 70s. And for much of the first several decades of D&D, and even into today to some extent, the relationship between players and dungeon masters was very confrontational, much more so early on in the development of the game. So when you walked into a dungeon or whatnot, it was, we'll just say, dangerous to go the wrong way, pull the wrong lever, do the wrong thing. So we talked in a previous episode about paranoid players questioning everything that the dungeon master said or presented, including newly introduced characters. This is why. So if you split your party and had an antagonistic dungeon master back in the day, you were just likely to die. Your character was likely to not make it out. If you would have what was known as a TPK, or a total party kill. Even if your dungeon master wasn't antagonistic, they might have balanced out the encounters, the combat encounters for your group to be traumatic and interesting for your entire party. And having fewer of you means a TPK is just much more likely, unless they did some adjustments on the fly. Yet, we see characters in TV and movies and novels split their group all the time and go in different directions. Even in non-horror movies where, you know, people split the group and then come back and don't die. I'm not a huge kind of supporter of the idea of just not splitting the party under any circumstances. And in fact, I've run entire games where various players are in 2 or even 3 different places at once. In fact, during the finale of our own Masks game, we split the party, and Brendan handled it beautifully. Masks is a little bit more narrative-oriented, so splitting the party is a little easier to handle. But we did have 3 of our characters in a hallway in a psychic landscape, while another 2 of our characters were trying to fight Monster Mala and the Brain. So you check that out for an example of kind of seeing how he jumped the spotlight back and forth. Because the biggest concern you should have at a gaming table with a split party is just simply not letting any one player sit for too long doing nothing. That means you either make sure that you're turning the spotlight from one of your groups that are being active to another enough so that someone's not sitting there for very long, or drawing the players into the scene that you're currently running. And the latter is my favorite thing to do. Notice I didn't say the characters, but pulling the players into the scene. So there's no reason why you as a game master need to, 1, play every supporting cast character of all time. Major ones, sure. But that bartender or that, car dealer, there's no reason why you can't hand that to one of your other players and have them stretch their legs a little bit and do something fun and interesting. Or 2, you don't have to also make all the rolls at the table. In fact, it's often much better if you don't. So you can hear an example of this in the Star Wars Episode 8 actual play that I ran for the GM's showcase. During at least half of that game, so during the entire game, I never had all 4 characters in the same space, period. And during at least half of that game, I had these 4 players in 3 different locations. 1 in space, 1 in the atmosphere, in a ship, and 2 on the surface. And they all had 3 different obstacles in front of them or goals. And during the scenes with Poe and BB-8 out in space, I had Luke's player make BB-8's computers checks. During scenes where Finn was flying through the atmosphere dodging TIE fighters, and he had someone on the guns shooting at the TIE fighters, I had Rey's player roll for the non-player characters that were firing at the TIEs. You can hear brilliant examples of this all the time on One Shot Podcast Network's Star Wars series called Campaign. Each of the players are often playing multiple supporting cast characters for the Game Master, and it makes it much more interesting and fun for those of you who are running the game and the players at the table, because you get a very solid mix of different personality types and ideas and things from your players, so you don't have to bear all that weight. Now, I could have an entire podcast episode breaking down techniques and do's and don'ts, but if you want to read more, you can check out, I have an article on tribality.com just called Splitting the Party, and the link's in the show notes. As well, I also highly recommend checking out that Episode 8 Edge of the Empire game. My players were brilliant, and it was one of the best games I've been in a very, very long time. So if you're into Star Wars, you can go check that out and see what I did there. And DM Mitch and I talk about it in the post-game interview as well, about splitting the party and techniques for that as well. All right, you ready to crash the mode?
Let's crash the mode.
Tell us something we don't know yet.
Sorry, BB. We can't risk altering the time stream. We do that, we're all feeling the mode.
In Crashing the Mode, we'll be discussing spoilers for Young Justice and the DC Universe. If you are spoiler wary, please consider this your warning. All right, so this is something a little random and maybe not related at all, but Vandal comes up in this episode, and one of our listeners pointed out to me that apparently one of Vandal's children that we were talking about recently is Beowulf, the monster-slaying, ancient epic Beowulf, which I find crazy and interesting. So, who knows who else is out there related to Vandal? It makes me wonder if Greg and Brandon have written down a bunch of historical figures and a family tree
They
for
have.
Vandal. Have they? Did they?
I only know this because of con stuff. I believe they have, because Greg worked out a series timeline that went years and years before the show started.
Yeah.
That figures out what year Batman became Batman, what year everyone did their thing and started their thing.
Perfect.
And I believe I've heard from stuff that the first thing in that timeline is Vandal Savage creating the first fire. I believe is the first thing on that timeline.
Vandal Savage creates fire. Wow. Harnesses fire.
Also, just checking the Twitter thing of
Wow.
what we were just talking about with Vandal Savage's kids. It's Grendel, not Beowulf. Beowulf is his grandson.
Oh, okay. Sorry. My apologies. Grendel.
You
not
know,
Beowulf.
you got to get your overlapping fictional canons right, man.
Sorry, man. Thank you for correcting.
And we have
me.
no
I
idea if this
appreciate
is even true in Young Justice.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, being as much of a classics person as Greg is in particular, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, why not? That's so interesting.
true.
But yeah. So we mentioned something earlier that Neal is probably cut because I crashed the mode early. Yeah, Roy's not part of the team. He gets kicked off the team.
Yeah.
Which I find interesting.
He does come back in the season finale to help with everything because everybody comes back.
Yeah, sure.
For that season finale. But as far as we know, he's not part of the team.
No, but we do get art for him for season 3. So we know he's come back.
In some capacity.
In some capacity. And also a later version of the Outsiders comic is actually, Arsenal and the Outsiders.
Yeah.
And like I think we've said it previously, we've seen a nod to that already in the series. So that's interesting. I want to see that.
Definitely.
So Mongul being captured in this episode actually makes it so that they can use him as a distraction. Mongul goes toe-to-toe with Black Beetle later on down the line, which is crazy town. And then the big one is that kind of the key goes back and forth and there's a bunch of drama about the war world, but in the finale, Vandal's got the war world.
Yeah.
Yikes. It hands it over to Darkseid.
Yup.
So.
In that cliffhanger ending.
Quote unquote cliffhanger. Yeah. I get the long-term plan of the Light and Vandal, at least if they weren't lying. But
we don't know ever.
Yeah.
Who knows, man?
But why is Darkseid doing what he's doing?
Because season 3 reasons.
Because season 3 or 4 or 5.
12. 16. Season 16 is when we find out.
Exactly. There it is. Season 16. Nailed it. Gosh, what else is there?
There's the trial going on with the League that comes up later. Much, well, not even much later. 5 episodes from now.
Yeah. I like that they figured out a reasonable way to get some of the heaviest hitters off the planet.
Yeah.
So that the action could focus on, well, first of all, can focus on some of the other League members like Captain Atom and some others, but then also, of course, giving an excuse for the team to be more involved. But that's it. I don't think I have any other, anything else. It was mostly just about the history of Mongul, really, but none of that's really a crash in the mode.
Rich, you don't have to feel bad. This is more crashing the mode than we've had for 3 episodes. So...
Yeah, there's not a lot of mode to crash because, again, we're getting toward the end of, we're in starting the last 25% of the season. So everything's hopefully, appropriately, starting to wrap up. So, yeah, we'll see how that goes. All right, well, let's get into some fan service. I have some fan service this week.
I've admired your stance on animal rights for years.
As you guys know, I was at Comic-Con this year, and there was some pretty amazing costumes going on. And in fact, Cam was pretty funny. He was grabbing every Robin and Jason Todd he could find and getting pictures with them, which was cute. And there was a couple of Blue Beetles as well, and Eric was getting some shots with them. Seeing the reaction on people's face when I'd be like, yeah, so, when we were in the Young Justice panel, it was a super big deal. But when we were out on the floor, it was like, do you watch Young Justice? Oh, yeah, I love it. No, there you go. The guy you're dressed up as is voiced by this guy. What? It was fun. But there was one costume in particular that really blew me away. In fact, I would go to say that it is one of the best cosplays I've ever seen. And that was a cosplay of Damian Wayne. You can check it out. We'll have a link in the show notes, but it's Galactic Spidey. So www.instagram.com/Galactic Spidey. Go check that out. He's got not just pictures of himself in this outfit with some great poses, but he teamed up with somebody who does some brilliant Nightwing cosplay as well. And there's this unbelievable shot of him leaping in the air with his sword out at Nightwing, who's in a defensive stance. Oh, it's so cool. So if you get a chance, go check it out. He made everything. He didn't make the mask, he said, or the sword. And that was it, or the contacts, because he's one of the few cosplayers I've seen that actually do an all-white eye with his costume, like the comics do. And I didn't even know you could do that. It was impressive. The rest of it was all handmade by him, and it's amazing. So go check that out. And with that, I think we can wrap up this mission and head out of the warehouse. So the best way to support the show is, of course, to share it with a friend. You can also support us with a 5-star review on iTunes or your podcatcher of choice. Leaving a rating or review pushes us up in the search ratings and helps other people find the show.
And please continue to hashtag #BuyYJComics on Comixology and buy the show somewhere online until that DC streaming service launches. You can find it anywhere you get your media. Like, it's on all of the main things. You can buy it, whichever one you want. You can also now use hashtag Young Justice Outsiders when talking about Season 3. And if you want to help us get more episodes, more Secret Origins, more actual play podcasts, and all the other stuff that you love listening to, please consider supporting us through Patreon. For just a few dollars a month, you can help us do even more with the show while getting some great rewards for yourself. And remember,
stay whelmed, everyone.
You've been listening to Whelmed, the Young Justice Files podcast. Our hosts are Rich Howard and Emily Booza. Our editor and producer is Neal Powell. Our theme was composed by Emily Mio. Our logo was created by Kevin Bates. Whelmed is a fan-made podcast and is not officially affiliated with DC Comics, DC Entertainment, Warner Brothers Animation, and any other owners of Young Justice or its related source material. As such, these companies have sole ownership of all symbols, images, names, logos, and proprietary material related to Young Justice. Original content of this podcast is ours under Creative Commons. Thanks for listening, and stay whelmed.